Now let's shift gears to a project that combines two of life's great pleasures. What are they? Good food and good cook. How many of you have a recipe buried in a long email thread that you wish was easier to find? Our next speaker solved this problem by building her own automated, community-driven online cookbook using Python. It's a perfect example of a fun, practical side project that solves a real-world problem. Please welcome Rachel Kaufman.
Hey, PyLadies, how's it going? I'm going to be here today to do a little show and tell about the Brookland Dish. That's an online cookbook or recipe storing website that I built for fun in Python. Not just because this is a Python conference, but also because Python is the language that I reach for when I want to make something fast and fun. I hope you feel the same way, and I hope that's why you're here. So this is not a fancy project or an advanced project. I was mostly just gluing together existing APIs. But to me, that is the fun of Python. So a little bit about me. I am a software developer. Java is actually the language I use most at work, but Python is definitely the one I reach for when I want to do something short and fun. If you're watching this as it's airing, we're right into the first week of advent of code, and so I'm probably writing a lot of Python right now and cursing at my computer. I'd love to meet you, so please feel free to reach out and say hi after this video. So this is the Brookland Dish. It doesn't look like much. That's because I'm mostly a back-end developer, and this is just one of the default templates that came with my static site generator. But I want to talk about why I made it, why I love side projects, and why you should too. And then we'll go through why I made it. This code is all in a public repo, so if you do decide to make something similar, I hope you'll fork this silly little project and do something cool with it. So why did I want to make this? So I am in a local potluck, and we have been meeting since before the pandemic almost every month. This is me, and these are all the other people in the potluck. I think it's really cool that we've kept this going for more than 5 years now. And we use an email list to coordinate who's bringing what, where we're meeting, that kind of thing. And these emails come in and they look like this. And wow, I really want to save this chocolate zucchini cake. It was actually delicious, and I want to make sure that I have it forever. Now, I could just save this to my own cooking app. I could bookmark it, but then I'd be the only one who had it. And maybe I want to share this with everyone. So that's exactly what I did. I built a website that scans for emails coming to this list. And if it sees one, it checks to see if the email contains a URL. And if the URL contains a recipe, then it will add a blog post to the website with the recipe's information. I also feel like this is a example, at least spiritually connected to the small web, which is the idea that we should all be building small personal projects to take back the internet from the 2 or 3 corporations that dominate 90% of it. Small web proponents also advocate for simple hand-built websites using HTML, CSS, and minimal, if any, JavaScript. I feel like I meet most of the criteria here. This is definitely not a hand-built website. It's entirely automated. But what makes me think that it fits into the small web is it's the idea that you can have an idea, you can build it, and then you have a thing that you love that appeals to nobody except for you and 5 friends. It doesn't have to make money. It doesn't have to scale. There's absolutely no pressure. And we should all want to bring back the fun and joy of making stuff on the internet just for fun, because, again, that's how we take back power from the people who think the internet should be a place to sell you things and show you the awful things that your third cousin liked on Facebook. And Python is a great language to do this in, but so are all your favorite languages. So back to the Brookland Dish. I used a couple tools. I'm going to go over these briefly. There's not time to go in depth. I used FastAPI, which is great for spinning up fast Python backends. I used an open source package called Recipe Scrapers. I used the GitHub API pretty heavily. This is hosted on an EC2 instance that I share with my husband. That's probably not what you'll be using. And I have some resources for free hosting linked at the end of this. I use GitHub Pages, which is a great way to publish a site for free to the internet. And I did use a static site generator called Jekyll, which is written in Ruby. Now, if you want to go full Python, there's a different static site generator out there called Pelican. I have not used it. I welcome your thoughts on it if you have. Now, this is a broad show and tell. I'm not going to go through literally every line of code, but we'll touch on the concepts and ideas on this page. And again, if you want to go deeper, the code and resources are available on my GitHub, which I'll link at the end. Here's the architecture of the site. This is literally all it does. We have a service that listens for an incoming email, and when one is received, it makes a post to an endpoint. If that email contains a URL, we check to see if the URL contains a parsable recipe. If it does, we create a new blog post and create a PR adding it to the site. So, how do we make it happen? All right, we need a way to listen for incoming recipes and hit an endpoint when an email comes in. Now, there's a free service called Proxied Mail that does exactly this. It is great. It's designed for protecting your privacy when you sign up for things, which is a super admirable goal, but it also has email webhooks. Now, I'm really happy to have found this because a lot of places claim to have email webhooks, but most of them mean we'll make an API request when your email is delivered or if it bounced. What we want is when my email address receives an email, we want to make an API request. So Proxied Mail is great for this. We'll build the API. I'll talk about it later. And again, there's exactly one endpoint, a post endpoint that is hit every time an email is sent to my special email address. Now, we'll also need a way to parse the recipe into something usable. Now, there's a great open source library called Recipe Scrapers that does exactly this. Now, here's how it works. As you know, most recipes on the internet now come with pages and pages of backstory. A lot of them have auto-playing videos. A lot of them have ads all over the place. Some of them are auto-playing video ads. And this is all just, due to some things that have happened with SEO and people trying to get their websites and their recipes to rank higher in search engines. But this has led to the proliferation of apps and websites such as Just the Recipe, another one that is also called Just the Recipe, a third one called Jump to Recipe, and the list goes on and on. And these all work because a lot of cooking websites use a open schema or schema.org format, which is simply a way of providing structured data on the internet to help sites can talk to search engines and that kind of thing. These are some of the parts to the recipe schema, but what it means for us is that a lot of cooking websites already store all of their important information in a really easy, scrapable format. So there's this great Python library called Recipe Scrapers. It's open source, and if you find a website that isn't supported, you could open a PR to support it, and that's kind of addictive, so be careful because I may have spent quite some time working on that earlier this year. So we can get our recipes from there. And then finally, we just need to do something with that recipe, which in our case is going to be make a pull request with that recipe in a template, and then publish the recipe to a site, which GitHub pages will take care of for us. All right, so let's get cooking. I'm really excited to dive into the code a little bit, even though it's very simple. So like I said, we have exactly one endpoint, and it basically looks like this. I won't go over every method, but it's pretty simple. First, here's the API. We use this decorator in FastAPI to define the route. I have defined incoming email as a class elsewhere in this code, but you can imagine what it looks like. It has a subject line that's a string. It has a body. It has a sender. It has a time that it was sent, that kind of thing. Then we simply use a regular expression to extract the first URL from the body. If we find one, we try to parse it using the Recipe Scrapers library. If we are able to successfully parse it, we just generate a file, a template, using the information that we extracted. And then finally, we post to GitHub and make a PR. That's it. That's all it really needs to do. Now, I'd like to dive deeper into the GitHub method because it is worth calling out that if you want to use the API to force push to main, I think it's like one API call. But if you want to do like I did and make a PR because I want to have a little bit more control over what's going on the site, it is a little bit more complicated. So each of these methods, it's a little more steps. We make a request to one of GitHub's endpoints. The first one, we just get the hash of the head of the main branch. So as you know, the hash is the unique identifier that identifies the state of the branch at that exact moment in time. We then create a new branch off of that head. It's basically, in this case, the same as if you did this using the command line. Then we add our new file to the tree. So we take all of the files that already exist on main and we add our file to it, which generates a new hash. We then make a new commit, merging the hash back onto the branch. We update our pointer to point to the new head of the branch, and then we simply create a pull request using the name of the branch and the new content. Now, each of these requests by themselves is pretty simple. We just have an endpoint, and then we make a request, we get the response, and do something with the response. Pretty simple, actually. So let's see it in action.
So here's a live demo of the app. All I'm doing here is sending an email to my webhook-enabled email address. I'm just going to include a recipe I found on the New York Times cooking site. So let's just send this off. As you can see, this email has generated a PR. The PR is just going to contain a single markdown file with all of the information parsed from the recipe. And my static site generator, Jekyll, is going to parse this markdown and turn it into an HTML file. I have a GitHub preview action set up that will display what the site would look like if I merge this PR. Here's the action finished, and here's what it would look like on the site.
So that's basically it. Now, this was a project I wanted to build to help keep my neighbors connected and remember the meals that we shared, but there are so many other ways you could take this. For one thing, if the email says, I didn't have almonds, so I used pistachios, and I actually think that that's better than the original, that information is currently lost in this implementation. So you could very easily write something to parse the email body using an LLM or otherwise to extract that information and keep it part of your recipe. If you were, you could also just get rid of the recipe scraping library and just have people email a recipe straight to you to create a post, and you could collect recipes from your family or friends that way. You could put a blog post in an email body. No one says it has to be a recipe. The site could have comments or ratings from the public. Both of these are not super straightforward with a static site generator, but they are possible. So that's something you could look into. You could use a different backend pipeline. Nothing says it has to be hosted on a 24/7 available, backend host. I think it would be much better, actually, as some sort of Lambda or serverless function. And I'm actually working on doing that right now with Cloudflare email workers. So watch this space for more. And of course, you could make it a lot prettier than I did. So there's lots of ways you could take this. Now, I hope you will go make something amazing. I hope this has inspired you. And please check out this short link here to see the code, some resources that are related to this project, and get in touch. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rachel, for that brilliant show and tell. You have perfectly captured the spirit of the small web, building something personal, joyful, and useful, just because you can. It's a great inspiration for all of us to look at the small annoyances in our own life and think, I could probably automate that with Python. Let's give Rachel a big round of applause for her delicious project.